Well, let's just dive into it because I'm sure you're busy. So Reboot the Mission. Scott, I'm sure you've talked about this ad nauseum with people already about the Clash influences on there, and especially having Mick Jones on there. But what I wonder is, in the development of the song, did you have it written and then brought Mick on board, or did you write it, specifically with him in mind?
Well, probably a little bit of both. I had just seen Big Audio Dynamite play earlier in the year and was reminded what a great presence he was, and then got to talking about those influences. And we chased that with them in mind. It was only afterwards that we'd finished it that we'd realized, it'd be a shame not to ask him to participate.
And was he for it right away? Did he jump into it?
Yeah, he sure was.
And what was it?
I'd like to assume if he didn't like it, he wouldn't have responded.
Right.
So, I gave him the window to find a way to not be available if he didn't like it. But, he was great.
And what was it like in the studio? Did it just come naturally for him? Because joining you've had a band for a long time. There's been some members changes and whatnot, but like you and Rami and Greg have a synergy together. Like you guys know what each other are going to play. So what's it like bringing in an outsider into the studio environment?
Well, I'd love to tell you that it was an all-night recording session, but the way things work today, you can do this different times. So I would, we weren't actually together when he did his part, but it was all carved out. Yeah, it was all carved out for him. We left the space, and I actually sent him 2 songs to give him a choice, thinking, I always like to be given a choice when presented something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But, we just didn't really give him any instruction, just left space for him and just said, whatever comes to mind, guitar or vocals, let's hear it.
Well, it works out quite well, yeah.
Yeah.
In the song, you also shout out the band in one of the verses there. So the lineup is not the lineup that has always been the band. The band has, like I mentioned earlier, has been changing a lot over the years. So who's in this lineup, and why are they in this lineup?
Well, Greg and Rami and I, that's the core of it from the beginning.
Right.
So when people suggest it's a reunion of some kind, I guess it is, but the other members have fluctuated and changed throughout the years. But the core has always been the same. And we've got Jack Irons now, who comes with his own complete resume,
mm-hmm.
showing up on drums, and he's been he's really turned the whole thing upside down for us. And Stuart Mathis, who's toured with us for years, hasn't had a chance to make a record on guitar. It's the most solidified and purposeful the group has felt in a long, long time.
I thought he played on Red Letter Days. He didn't?
No, Stuart didn't. He came on board right around when we were touring around then.
Oh, maybe that's why. Okay. See, I saw you play a show in Calgary, 3-4 years ago now, but it was just you Greg was in the band too, I think.
Was it the Wallflowers?
It was under the Wallflowers, but it was after the solo, right? It was after the first solo disc.
Oh, yeah, that was a version of the Wallflowers there too. It's just changed. I'd like, it doesn't work out the same for everybody to be in a group like U2 or the Rolling Stones, or even the Rolling Stones aren't the same.
That's right, yeah.
It's not easy, there's no shame on anybody for not being able to keep it the same throughout the years. That's not all of our destinies to be able to do that. So, it's changed, but the core of it's been the same.
Mm-hmm. So the new record, you started work almost 2 years ago from what I read. January 11 is what I've got here. Is that true?
That we finished or started?
No, started work. Started work January 11th.
That sounds just about right, yeah.
So that took a long time. That's a long time to make a record.
Oh, well, we've only worked on it for a month. I've been sitting here waiting to get busy for quite a while.
Okay. Well, that's good.
No, it actually took us, I think we finished in 4 weeks.
Oh, no way. So that did take a while. And I read something about you saying at one point the frustrating thing about making records is by the time they come out, you've moved on. So have you started
to? No, you haven't moved. No, you haven't moved on, but there's a holding pattern really afterwards that you've got to sit tight and, do all the stuff like we're doing right now, waiting for the music to come out, to go out and go to work. We've played a bunch of shows. We've been starting to get busy, but that's always been the same. The band has always made records and then had to kind of wait 6-8 months for them to show up.
And what's that like? It must be a little frustrating and daunting because you make these songs for people to hear them, right?
Yeah, it's okay. He's got to be patient. The good news is it takes that long. If you didn't have, support in a record company situation to do things, I guess you could put them out tomorrow night. But,
right.
So, that's the good news and the bad news is it takes a little bit to get these things together.
Yeah, it got me thinking there. I saw you guys play a show. I think it was the night Breach got released. You played in Toronto. And it was just when Napster had just hit, and I had already heard the record, and I was singing along to every song in the crowd, but I noticed that no one else was because the record wasn't actually out yet. I think it's a really interesting dichotomy that we've moved into in the business where,
Well, that record actually was a timely record with Napster situation. That was that record was released right at the peak of that Curiosity.
Yeah.
I mean, that record was that was a record that when anybody at that time, if Napster was peaking with Curiosity, that record was an anticipated record that came out right then at that time. So it was an experiment for a lot of people to see if you could at that time to get a brand new release before it's out, and that record definitely was affected. I should say its visibility was affected by that situation, but it was no sour grapes. That was the future right on its way.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was interesting because I think that is the strongest record. I love that record. I like it more than Bringing Down the Horse. I don't know why. It might have just been my age at that time. You know how that affects things, but
I've heard that. I've heard that similar thing from people. That record was kind of a sleeper. It didn't have the visibility of the one before it, but for those really paying attention, I think it moved them more.
Yeah, was it frustrating for you as a writer to know that you have these great songs, but there's the Korn, there's the Limp Bizkit. It was during that time of that's what when Bringing Down the Horse came out, that I don't want to say band style rock and roll, but you know what I mean. It was the big thing, and then it moved to the heavier stuff just as Breach came out.
That's okay, though. That's good. I mean, the band and myself have never really wanted to have been too concerned with operating at a time when it was timely. That's okay. If you're going to be doing something like we do that's traditional, you're going to have to just sit back and watch a lot of these movements and trends come and go, and they're not really fooling anybody. I mean, who's investing in them is not the audience I'm looking for anyhow.
Right.
I mean, that's never going to change, and that's everybody that has set the example for longevity has had to put their head down and go right through those situations.
We're talking about old stuff, but let's move on to the new record here because we are talking about Reboot the Mission, or not Reboot the Mission, Glad All Over. The guys were included more in the writing of this, I read. Is that true?
Yeah, that's something they wanted to do, and that's something I wanted some help with. I've just not just the band's records, the records I made on my own. I've had the burden of writing all the songs year after year, and that's something I've wanted to do. But I thought it was something I could use some help with on this, and the band wanted to be more involved. So, everybody's done a lot of things, and we've kind of come back around to trusting one another in a good way. That it was a good opportunity for everybody to stretch out and do things that maybe they didn't always get a chance to do within the group.
Are we talking lyrics or melodies? What did they help with?
No, I write all the lyrics, but
okay.
Musically, the structure of the songs, I've always written them, and they come in with you write songs the way I do traditionally.
Which is how? You and an acoustic?
Well,
by
just
yourself?
on a guitar or piano by myself. When they come in, they come with an inherent structure that the band can really get around, and we freed ourselves up from really not coming in with too much of the structure, and we just played music hours and hours on end until we found situations that I could take all these lyrics that I brought with me. I purposely just compiled all my lyrics and brought them all and said, I'm going to use all these. We're just going to find places for them. I don't think the music and the arrangements is really going to have an effect too much on whether these lyrics are going to work or not. The lyrics, I had to tweak a lot of them, but I write them in a traditional form, so it wasn't that complicated to do, and it made for different music that I would. I mean, I just can't do a song like Reboot the Mission by myself on acoustic guitar.
No, I wouldn't think so. Yeah.
No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't really work. So that really requires everybody, getting in from the ground up and finding these grooves these templates that move, and then I'll find a way in afterwards. You
said piano and guitar there. Do you write typically on guitar or piano? What do you tend to gravitate to?
Guitar, really.
Guitar, and is there a room or a place that you find comfortable writing?
No.
You can write anywhere?
Do it anywhere. No, when I need songs, it doesn't really matter. A little bit of quiet always helps, but I don't have a special guitar or special room, any of that. I don't need to look out on an ocean. I can do it on the train or I can do it in the subway. It doesn't really matter. You're
able to do it on the road? Because I talk to a lot of guys that say they have real trouble writing on the road. They can compile ideas, but actually sitting there and trying to come up with a song.
No, I compile ideas. It just takes. I just need a little more concentration, and that's a little bit of multitasking. They're two different gigs entirely for me.
Right.
It's different for everybody, but it just works for me better to compile everything, bring it home, and adjust it.
You're talking about let's go into another song here, Constellation Blues. I love that tune. I think it's really cool, and I like titles that say something blues. A lot of people do that. I like that. Guns, soldiers, desert, 21-year-old. I heard though. I can't remember the quote, and I'm paraphrasing you here. Something about you not being a reactionary writer. It's not where your better stuff comes from. But that's kind of a reactionary song to the world, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't say I'm not a reactionary. I'm not a reactionary writer to my own material. Is probably what I meant.
Oh, okay.
You get asked that a lot about records. Is it a reaction to the record before that or material before that? That I would say no. You know, the stories find you how they find you. And the stuff that I'm interested in writing about, no matter how much I might want to chase things or compartmentalize things, they still just arrive however they do, and they usually have similar language that is parameters that I work in. But no, I say, you know, my stuff. That's all I can do is the stories. You know, you're not that in charge really. You know, you are reactionary to the climate and the things around you. You'd like that to be different. But I just write however they show up to me. I'm not someone who sits down in a room and says, I need a song about X, Y, and Z at this point to fulfill a record or somebody else's needs. A good song, it's just you have to get out of the way and just let it show up.
Right. And so what else, for people that haven't heard the record, what else can we hear on Glad All Over?
Well, I don't know. I couldn't. I'm just learning. You know, I did it. I did it. I was there. I got to sit back and kind of get some perspective. But what I know when I hear it, which each time I hear different things. What I do hear is a band that sounds more energized and alive than it has in a long time. And I know a lot of bands probably say that. I think you're supposed to say that. I think you'd be out of line if you didn't.
Well, yeah, you wouldn't be in a good spot if the band was not on fire.
No, but you know, it was a lot of hard work, but it wasn't laborious grinding work that really doesn't usually produce better results anyhow. It was really, you know, it was tough work. We work hard, but everybody was in the same frame of mind with the same vision, the same goals this time, and the room was only stocked with the correct people that really had the same vision. And it just moved along. It sounds like that to me. It sounds like a band that is. There's only good questions in the room at this point. You know, bands start out at different points. You get a lot of muck in the room. You get a lot of, you know, white noise and the wrong opinions floating around. You're very protective and puzzled by, you know, the questions that you're hearing or the path that the song might be taking. But you know, I really felt. I hear it. You know, when I hear it, I remember being in the room and just thinking this is really where the band should be, which is. Someone's idea here is going to win over in every situation, but I'm finally relieved that whoever's idea that is, it's going to be a really good idea. So we're just choosing between great ideas at this point.
Was there ever a record that was a real, what do you say, laborious effort?
Oh yeah.
Which one?
Oh, you know, Breach was a really laborious effort. That was tough to make. That was, I would say, probably the most of a struggle to make.
Well, just because of the pressure to follow up the massive success?
You know, there's a lot of struggle going on, a lot of tug of war happening. You know, that's, you know, band. You know, after your band breaks, you know, everybody's listening. It's not the pressure of what other people want to hear. It actually has more to do with when you get to the next step. You got a lot of different people suggesting that they were the reason that the previous one was so worthwhile. But, you know, guys like me, you write those records like Bring Down the Horse that affected a lot of people. You know, I was just still one guy sitting in a room writing songs with no real idea who or if anybody was ever going to hear them. So the next time around, you know, you know, I didn't struggle with the writing material. The record itself was the real struggle to make. It just was my recollection. That's a long time ago, but that was an experience I didn't want to relive again anytime soon. But, you know, I also hear it in the record. You know, I hear that what I just said is not just it's not, you know, that ain't just a bad thing. It's just my recollection was I can't wait for this thing to be done and have it sealed up. But now I listen to it, I don't hear that anymore. I hear a great record that it sounds like there's a lot of confusion going on. It sounds like there's a lot of friction, and that's sometimes what the best records are made from.
Well, that's interesting. You say now I listen. How often do you listen to it?
Well, just occasionally if the band's rehearsing something, we got to reference something or hear something on the radio.
Right.
You know, I hear it, and you know, the memories of what happened when it goes down, they kind of dissipate, and you just hear what you hear. And it seems very simple. You know, when you're making it, it might take 4 months to record a song, but we listen back to it all these years later. It's just 3.5 minutes. You know, you've forgotten.
Yeah, you mentioned rehearsing there, so you guys must be. Well, you're playing a few shows. I think you got a few shows at the end of the month, then you're on the road for a few weeks. Are we going to see you up here in Canada, or is there any plans for a Toronto date? Or
yeah, we'll get up there. We're going to get everywhere. You know, we're going to try to get everywhere. There's a lot of places we either haven't gotten to or just haven't been to in a while. But that's one of our plans this time is to make sure we don't burn out too soon before we manage to reach everywhere.
Right. And what's the set list going to look like? How are you guys going to build it? Obviously, there's songs people want to know. You got these new songs you got to play. So what stays in? What goes away? How does that work?
You know, general rules, whatever sounds good. You know, I don't think our career is that compartmentalized, you know, that we can't. I mean, you know, if the band is playing really well, any of these songs from 20 years ago or today should sit well with one another. And the ones that don't probably won't get played, not because they don't even sound good individually, but it's just got to they got to feel right together with the way the band is currently playing. And there's nothing off limits. And I certainly have respect for the songs that people, you know, you're going to ask people to go spend some time and spend their money and come down to a show. You know, I'm not going to play one Headlight as a waltz for people and really toy with their minds that way. I don't think that's fair or worthwhile. And I have a lot of respect for people coming to shows to hear whatever's their favorite.
That's interesting, and I didn't know if I wanted to bring up your dad or not, but your dad takes a different approach to the show. He screws around with the arrangements every night.
Yeah, well, I mean, we change arrangements. You know, I just take the song. Well, the songs have a structure, and the songs dictate what they. You know, a good song is flexible. You know, that's all. But I don't have any game in mind of making them unrecognizable or really. You know, I think bands go through that. I think we went through that. I think people start to resent at some point early on when they're starting out that people are coming to hear only a handful of songs, and geez, we got 50 songs, and it seems like everybody's going to want to hear those too. There's going to be a portion of your audience that does always want to do that, but then you got about 20 other songs in that set that you can do whatever you want to do. It's not asking too much of bands to play that song. You affected people. You found them at a time, and you got a song they're attached to. That's not, you know, that's a gift to you as an artist. I see it that way.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
You know, I do nothing but embrace that. It doesn't matter. You know, I just keep it. You know, I think it's simple each night. You just can have respect for the situation. It's not asking too much of artists.
Are there any songs that surprised you that worked out really well live, besides the huge hits? But like, I don't know, something off for Bell Sweetheart or Red Letter Days that you were like, oh, people really dig this song. That's crazy.
Yeah, you know, I mean, before we go on tour, we don't, you know, I know some groups really micromanage the set list. We really don't. And it's just instinct. You know, the best, you know, I just try to know everything, want the band to be able to play everything. And then each night our set list is, you know, it centers around a certain number of songs, but it's got to fluctuate. It's got to rotate to keep the band interested. And I think people appreciate that. I think that makes for a better show. I mean, we're going to nail quite a bit of that set.
Mm-hmm.
And we're also going to stumble on a few. And I wouldn't want it any other way.
Exactly. That's what people want to see. They like little flubs here and there. That's the best part. That's what makes a show memorable. Are you going to throw any of those? Because I love the covers you guys do. Even that Beatles cover from I think it was I Am Sam is amazing. So, I mean, you guys did a lot of covers. There was an era where I heard a lot of them. There was the Who, the I Started a Joke, and the Bee Gees and all this stuff. And now I haven't heard one in a while. I guess besides.
Well, you know, we did a lot of those early on when, you know, we did those songs, a lot of those, you know, in between records, and we learned a lot of those songs because, you know, bands break and they show up and they got one album with the material that people know, which is usually 10 to 12 songs, but you're set to 22 songs or so. So, you know, we always gravitated towards, you know, learning some other people's songs, which is, you know, that's all bands should do that. There's no pride in only singing your own songs. There's no use to doing that. I mean, Jimi Hendrix did terrific with other people's songs.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So, you know, that's all opportunity and advantage for every band. And I think bands are better if they can play cover songs. I don't even suggest they reinvent them. Just play them like you heard them, and you know, that's how it should be done.
Oh yeah, and you Wallflowerize it just by you playing it, right?
you can't help it. You know, we do those songs. The word reinvent never pops in. We just play the song.
Mm-hmm.
You know, great groups. You know, the Beatles started out as a cover group. There's nothing wrong with being a cover group. I think that's awesome. So when we get into those, we just play the songs, and it's unavoidable that your band is going to have some kind of a dynamic and characteristic that sounds like you're reinventing the song. But I've never gone into those songs pretending to do that. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to reinvent the Beatles song. Are you nuts?
No, it's probably not a good idea.
Well, yeah, that's a lose-lose.
How come you haven't covered one of your dad's songs? That's got to be a conscious decision because there's been so many tribute records and whatnot.
You know, just look. I mean, it's just simple. It's like, you know, maybe someday. I mean, it's you know, I'd be one of the few that didn't. But at this point, you know, it's you know, it'd be more of a freak show for people. That it wouldn't do much for me or for.
Right.
I wouldn't have any real purpose or gain to doing it. It would just be for other people, and I just don't. I'm not at a point in my career life that I would want to be gawked at in that way, and I'm not looking to relive be a part of anybody's nostalgic moment where they're reliving something, and you know, it'd be novelty, wouldn't it?
Yeah, no, I agree. I was just curious,
you know?
because there, you know, there was that huge Chimes of Freedom record that just came out, and I was like, I wonder if Jakob will put one on there.
Yeah, you know, there's a time where maybe there was a time I could have done it, just gotten it out of the way, so people would stop wondering about it. Maybe that time kind of came and went. Now it's back to the freak show aspect, but it's never called me. It's never been that. I've never denied it. If I wanted to, I would. It's not that, wouldn't be that big of a deal. But it's just, you know, you have to imagine the look and the gaze I would get by doing that. It's just not something that I would find moves me as much as it moves other people. And I don't feel the responsibility to have to do that and stir up those nostalgic feelings for people.
Mm-hmm. No, I hear you. Let's go back to the record.
But I got my own thing going. I got my own thing. There's other people who need to do that thing because they frankly don't have their own thing going on. So as long as I got my own thing going on, that would seem like an awfully desperate move.
One last question about the record, then we got to do 5 questions, and I'll let you go. But I heard you listen to a lot of ZZ Top making this record. So where are we going to hear ZZ Top on Glad All Over?
Oh, you can probably hear it in the first song, Hospital for Sinners. ZZ Top is, recently I've just rediscovered what a thrilling group that was. And, part of their process, when we were doing this record and I was wondering if going to Nashville without a bulk of songs was going to be a good idea, I just imagined Billy Gibbons in the studio, and I just couldn't imagine him showing up with 12 songs on his guitar. I imagine those guys getting in the room and going to the templates that they know well and just hammering out these songs until they found them based on tradition. And each one of those records sounds exciting and fresh and organic to me, so I figured we could kind of do the same thing. We could get in there and just, pick templates and find grooves and make songs out of it. It's just, I think at times we've overcomplicated it and putting all the burden on the song. Let's put some burden on the band here.
That's good. Well, and yeah, you got the band to do it with.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 5 questions, 5 quick questions, 1-word answers.
Oh, God, okay.
Yeah. Road or studio?
Oh, road.
Lennon or McCartney?
Not answering that. I do not engage in that one or the Beatles versus Stones. There's room for all of them.
Right.
I would never choose that.
Cool. No, that's
sorry.
a good answer. No, don't be sorry, man.
How about Nope? That's my answer. Nope.
No, I mean, I ask these same 5 to everybody, so it's always nice to
hear
different
that's all right. My answer to that is just Nope.
Just Nope. Okay.
Yep.
When you hear a song, what usually hits you first? Lyrics, melody, or rhythm?
Melody.
Song you've written you're most proud of?
I've Been Delivered.
Oh, nice. I like that one. In 1 word, the Wallflowers.
Jeez. Sturdy.
Sturdy. That's good.